Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. My name is John Shipley. I am your host and beat reporter, and I have been your beat reporter covering the Jacksonville Jaguars for On SI every single day since August 2019, and we're continuing to push forward to another offseason together. As always, you can always find our 100% free 24/7 boots on the ground coverage of the Jaguars each and every day when you follow us on social media such as Facebook and Twitter at Jaguars on SI. You can also find us at www.si.com/NFL/Jaguars. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast. We are breaking down the first day of Jacksonville Jaguars Veteran Minicamp. It is a 3-day minicamp for the Jaguars, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and we are here to break down day one, also known as Tuesday. So we are out there at the Miller Electric Center for the practice. It was very competitive practice. Liam Cohen said it was more competitive and more, I guess, really fast pace than OTA practices. They did very early on competitive 11 against 11 red zone drills. They kept score, offense versus defense, on scoreboard on the field. Offense won the day, 10-9. They did, third down period. They did a full-on team drills. They did a 2-minute drill at the end of the day. It was a lot of competition between the offense and defense. And like I said, the offense technically won the reps that they were keeping score of, 10-2. Not 10-2, my apologies, 10-9. But I thought it was a very back and forth day between the two units. I thought the secondary continues to impress, in my opinion. That isn't to say the secondary is going to be, fixed automatically. I mean, the secondary this time last year looked much improved, and we saw, what happened, of course. But it just seems like there are several players in that unit who are playing, some high-level stuff right now. I think Tyson Campbell is one of them. I think Tyson Campbell probably had the best practice of the day for any Jaguar on the field, offense or defense. Him and Brian Thomas Jr. always have some really good battles. I remember when Calvin Ridley was in Jacksonville, him and Tyson Campbell had some really good battles. Tyson Campbell, you would think, his skill set, lots of speed, big, long, physical guy. Maybe he's like a bigger receiver. Maybe he'd like speed receiver. Maybe he wouldn't want these kind of, quick burst, kind of route you up kind of guys. He seems to embrace it. He always impressed me in his reps against Calvin Ridley. He was one of the best. It's going to sound stupid, obviously, but it's one of the best practice players I've seen. And he had some really good reps against Brian Thomas Jr. And Brian Thomas Jr. looks good right now. I mean, Jordan Lewis said he looks like one of the best players he's ever covered in his career. And Jordan Lewis, I think, played with Des Bryant. Obviously played with CeeDee Lamb. I believe played with Amari Cooper. He played with some pretty good wide receivers in his time with the Cowboys. So Brian Thomas Jr. getting, that kind of shout out from him obviously shows you what kind of football Brian Thomas Jr. is playing right now. Tyson Campbell versus Brian Thomas Jr. was popcorn worthy. It was, a pay-per-view bout, heavyweight championship on the line. It was the must-watch portion of the Jaguars practice. They had several reps where the ball went that way. So it's not like the Jaguars were avoiding him. They were going at, Tyson Campbell, letting Brian Thomas Jr. get the reps in against them. Brian Thomas Jr. had one really nice route and catch against Campbell early on in the team period. Very shortly after, Lawrence tested Campbell again to Thomas Jr., and Campbell broke the pass up. Campbell's broken up a lot of passes throughout the offseason program. He had a few more impressive reps against Thomas throughout the day. He's been shouted out by Liam Cohen several times now, and as you guys know from listening to our podcast for as long as we've done it, our opinion of Tyson Campbell is very high. It is very simple. When he is healthy and when he is available, the Jaguars have a talented player. They have somebody who is arguably a top talent at the cornerback position. Just pure talent-wise, I don't think it's a stretch to say that a healthy Tyson Campbell at his best can be a top 10 cornerback in the NFL. And right now he's healthy, and he seems to be playing really well. The other big things I'd say, Travis Hunter was obviously on defense. First time that we've seen Travis Hunter work on defense. It is not the first time that he's practiced defense, obviously, during the offseason. I believe this was his fourth, maybe fifth defensive practice so far. It was the first time the media has been able to see him, at cornerback. And what I would say is just looked extremely smooth, extremely comfortable. You can tell that while the ceiling is there at wide receiver and the potential to score touchdowns and completely take over games and things like that is there at wide receiver, you can tell this is a guy who has spent a lot of time on task at the cornerback position. He just, to me, already looks like a pro, very smooth, very good vision, very good click and close. He has the ball skills. He made a very impressive pass breakup, during team drills. I think that the more he gets, to spend time on defense, the more he gets to integrate himself with their communication style, with the defensive scheme, he will obviously improve as a player. But I think just based on his natural skill set, he can go out there and he can play cornerback right now. Just because he is a natural cover guy, I think it's just something that he can get off the bus and be able to do in the parking lot. So I think that we still don't really know what his level of snaps will be on defense, as opposed to, he's clearly going to have a starting role on offense. I think that is still kind of to be determined. But I also think that regardless of how many snaps he plays, he is just such a talented young player, such an athlete, and such a natural cover guy that he will make an impact on their defense, regardless of how often he is on the field. I think Travis Hunter will do wonders for the Jacksonville Jaguars secondary. He just looks like a guy who is ready to cover an NFL receiver right now. On the flip side of things, when Travis Hunter is on defense, it was kind of the first time that I'd say I noticed this because, again, it was the first time that we've seen Travis Hunter on defense as opposed to offense. But when you take Travis Hunter out of that wide receiver room, it definitely looks different. It definitely, Travis Hunter just, even as a rookie who hasn't even come close to playing in his first game yet, just has such a presence on the field that the offense certainly looks different when he's not on. The two guys who I think probably got the biggest jump in increase in reps because Travis Hunter was on defense and because now one of their offensive starters wasn't available and they had to find somebody to fill his reps were Parker Washington and Joshua Cephas. Cephas had a nice play, caught a touchdown, and it was definitely up and down for the passing offense. You could feel the pass rush kind of impacting things a little bit, which it's hard to avoid. Yeah, it's just with no pads on, it's hard to really protect the way that it needs to be done for the passing game to look consistent. But I thought when things were kind of clicking that Joshua Cephas definitely caught my eye. So That's what I saw at the first day of Jaguars minicamp. Please let me know what you guys think. Please like, follow, subscribe, whatever you got to do to the Jacksonville Jaguars Insider Podcast on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And please follow us on YouTube at Sports Videos on SI.